Hey everybody, Steve here with Gear Stuff and Things. It has been a while since I put up a video, but I've got one for you today, and it's a doozy. I got to sit down with Jerry Trevino, who is a fellow YouTuber here. Some of you may know who he is. If you don't, well, it's time to get hip, and yeah, it's just a cool conversation. Jerry was nice enough to set aside some time to sit down and talk to me about his channel and his influences, and yeah, we get into all kinds of stuff. We get into stuff that's not even related to music. It was a great time and a fun conversation, and I hope you all enjoy it. If you haven't subscribed to Jerry yet, it's definitely time to do that. There'll be a big pile of links in the description with all kinds of stuff that Jerry does and things he's a part of, so definitely check that out. And yeah, let's hop into the interview. You're in?
Yep.
Cool. All right. Well, I guess. Hi, Jerry. It's good to meet you finally.
Hey there, Steven. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How's things on your end?
Pretty good. I just moved recently to upstate New York, and I'm starting to feel pretty settled in finally after we had a whole moving fiasco, and then then there's just the growing pains. I guess I'm used to like weather now.
Yeah.
I'm experiencing fall for the first time, and it's kind of like kicking me in the butt a little bit with allergies, but starting to get used to it. So yeah.
Where were you coming from?
Las Vegas.
Okay, well, that's a huge change. Yeah.
That's big
Like
change.
completely different world.
Exactly. Yeah, over here in upstate New York, it's where I'm at in Albany. It's very green and very quiet.
Hmm.
And in Las Vegas, it's very loud and very hot. So
Yeah.
you know, not a fan of those things anymore. So yeah.
There's cool stuff up there. There's a recording studio in Accord, New York, that I've spent some time at up there. It's
Oh, cool.
upstate, but I'm not sure how where it is in relation to you.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's some spots out there. There's lots of cool music stuff over there. But anyway, yeah, well, thanks for coming on. I know we've been trying to do this for probably about a year or so now.
I know.
Seems like.
It's just been a lot ever since like pre-pandemic into pandemic, and then you know rolling through those punches, and it's starting to feel like it's winding down finally. It's not filled with so much uh anxiety and grief, I guess, but we've done okay now.
Yeah, it's been weird. Have you played any shows yet this year?
Not outside of Las Vegas.
Okay.
Um but I guess I will say I am going in to visit next month.
Hmm.
And I do have a guess it's not really like a secret announcement, but I am playing a show under my solo project. But me and my old band are reuniting to play a show. So that's going to be really fun. We haven't announced it formally yet, but it is coming up. But I'm really looking forward to that.
Nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's always exciting. I we just ended my band just kind of ended doing one. We've spent like 10 years doing one thing, and then we just
Hmm.
decided to like completely same lineup of just switch and do something else. So we played our final show of the older material that was like for the past 10 years,
Yeah.
and now we're starting over, and it's kind of like, oh yeah, starting over is not easy. Like there's maybe this wasn't a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, like with band stuff, it's never really predictable. I've only really had like one real band that I can call like my band, but I've seen how other bands operate and filled in for shows here and there, and it's like super unpredictable. Like it has to do with like the vibe, and then like what the end goal is for everybody, and sometimes not everybody sees eye to eye, or and then like you end in one place, and then a few years go by, and then it's like, oh no, maybe we want to try something different, so yeah.
Yeah, there's always it's a lot of compromise. It's kind of like being in a relationship with like several different people at the same time.
It's honestly, that's the best way to sum it up. It's just one big relationship, and like spots where you should compromise, and spots where like your vision or whatever you want to call it, like whatever you feel strongly about, comes to the forefront. But and then like any relationship, like things change, so um I'm sorry to hear that your original project looks like it had to come to a close, but like a new thing, that's exciting too.
Yeah, it was a conscious decision. It wasn't really like a bad thing. It's just we over the years we had changed so much. And this particularly the last like we started out as like a sludge doom thing, and then as time went on, it became less that and more of like kind of a mixture of that and rock stuff.
Wow.
Like so. It changed enough that between the last record and then we have recorded one during the pandemic that's supposed to come out, but we're kind of waiting on a label, and that gets all weird.
Oh, wow, nice. Yeah.
But yeah, essentially we changed so much. It was just like maybe it's just time to like rebrand and kind of start over because we're really not in the world we were before. It ultimately may not be a good call, but it may ultimately be a great decision. I have no idea.
Yeah. Whatever makes you happy in the end, I guess.
Yeah, we'll feel it out, see how it goes.
Yeah.
So I got some questions for you. Some of them are, I apologize, my what you call it, headphone cable was underneath my keyboard there for a second. I didn't want to make noise. Anyways, most of them are pretty basic, run-of-the-mill stuff, and then other ones focus on your channel and kind of what you do there. So we'll just go through them one by one.
Perfect.
Cool. So the first one is what got you into playing guitar?
Um, that happened because I listened to a song called Ocean Avenue by a band called Yellow Card. My cousin showed me that song one day, and kind of to go before that a little bit. Like I wasn't really into music. Like I got
Hmm.
into music like kind of late. Because I was 13 when I heard that song. But before, like my upbringing, like whatever I was around, like I just around what my parents listened to, and then like what my other family would listen to and friends would listen to. It's just I don't know. It never really called my attention. But that was the first like rock song that I heard that
Hmm.
just kind of like caught my ear, and I was like, "Whoa, this is super cool." It's got the big like palm mute riff in the beginning, and I was just like, "Whoa, like I want to do that like immediately, like right now." It's all thanks to that song.
So that's super sweet. Like I that band's interesting too because it's kind of different with like having the violin player and stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean it's always kind of strange because like when people discover like my music and my catalog, and they're like, "Oh, okay, like who's your favorite band?" And then I'm like, "Oh, it was Yellow Card." Everyone's just like, "Oh, that's like kind of a weird like that's not the answer they were expecting."
Right.
Um, but I don't know. I'd argue that if you look through their catalog, like it's like pretty like musically diverse. Like there's a lot of stuff going on with like the guitars, and I learned that a lot about like layering, and it opened
Hmm.
my mind to like other things like you said with the violin, and then that just led to other styles of music. And now I listen to a little of everything, I guess. Um, but yeah, I think it's a little more musically dense than I think people give it credit for.
For sure. Yeah. I think like exposing yourself to anything different, even it's going to be beneficial, even if it's not something you necessarily like, it may still somehow wiggle its way into influencing what you do. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
yeah, that's awesome. I mean, what was your first guitar? I guess I didn't.
My first guitar, I actually still have it. It's in the closet behind me. Well, that's kind of an extension from that song, right? So like I heard that song, and then I was like, oh, I got to learn how to play the guitar. But like the only person that I knew how to play guitar was my uncle,
Mm,
my Tio William. So I asked my dad. I was like, hey, can we go over and like maybe I could ask him if I could like borrow it or whatever. Um, so then I did, and I was like, hey, like I want to learn to play the guitar now. Can I like borrow your guitar?
mm.
And he was like super cool with it. He was just like, "Oh yeah, like here it is." It came with a little like VHS tape of like some dude with like a what's the what's the haircut where it's like super long. I can't think of
The
it. What is it?
mullet?
The mullet. Yes,
Okay.
it's like some dude with a mullet. And he's like got like 80s clothes on, and like he's showing you how to do like chords and stuff. So he let me borrow that and like a little practice amp, and then I was like off to the races, right? And
Nice.
then I found out many years later. Because then unfortunately my dear William did pass a few years after that. He was diagnosed with leukemia, and that was like a whole thing. But I did find out many years after that because his son, my cousin Billy, he told me that later, like the second I had left that day with his guitar, he had
Mm.
asked his dad, and he was like, "Hey, so what do you think about like this guitar thing that he's trying to do?" And I guess he said something along the lines of, "Oh, he'll be back in a week. It's okay." And it's like, yeah, and it's like, nah.
No, you got the bug.
It just became like my obsession, and like obviously, as you can see, like it just all I think about is like the guitar and like gear and pickups, and sometimes it's I don't know, sometimes it's just so dumb to think about,
It's kind of a bummer. Yeah. Gear
it's just like,
acquisition
uh-huh,
stuff. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Never ending.
But to answer the question, sorry, his
No, no, you're
guitar,
fine.
it was it's an old Yamaha Pacifica.
Oh, those are great guitars.
Well, I mean they're called Pacificas now.
Hmm.
The one that I had, it was like an EG
Hmm.
112 or something like that. But it that's what turned into the Pacifica. So, just kind of like a Strat copy.
Hmm.
But it was perfect, man. It had it had the like a humbucker and then two single coils. And that guitar like just did what it needed to do for me to learn about, whatever. And then I just went onto YouTube, and that's like, I was like self-taught for the first year, and I just would go on
Hmm.
YouTube and learn a bunch of tutorials. And it's funny because I didn't learn about uh drop D until like way after that. Because I would always see it on like the tabs, right? And I'm like, I didn't know what that meant, but like whatever. So I would be playing these songs that were supposed to be played in drop D
Hmm.
in standard tuning.
Oh, wow.
Um and so like so it never sounded right, obviously, right? It sounded horrible. Especially like under distortion and stuff. But to
Right.
me at the time, I just took it like, oh, I'm just not very good at the song yet. Like, it's just like, I just need to play better, and then it's gonna sound better. And then once I learned drop D, and like, then I started playing, I was like, wait, what? I was just like in the wrong tuning the whole time, and I had no idea.
Oh, yeah.
But it's pretty cool. I still have it. A lot of the original electronics I gutted out, for like Seymour Duncans and stuff, and
Nice.
just to make it a lot. I don't really play it too much these days, but it's great because my uncle has since passed, but it's nice to have like that, the little reminder, the little memento of his, to kind of carry on like what he gave to me, essentially.
For sure. Yeah. It's a great way to like keep them close in a way, you know?
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. You're like,
Uh,
what's your first guitar? And I'm like, oh, my uncle had
no, that's
cancer. And
awesome.
it's like, you know.
My second question was going to be pertaining to you liking Yellow Card, that you were a
Mm,
huge fan. I discovered this via your Instagram, of course, but
yeah.
you kind of covered that already. So
Oh, no worries. Yeah, no worries.
we'll jump on. So the the thing that like I like the most about your channel, I'll get to how I found you in the next question. Like I should
Oh,
have
no, no worries. Yeah.
arranged them differently, but however, no, like you're always taking like Sonic stuff and like video game stuff and kind of doing like arguably like metal versions of them. I don't
Sure.
know how else to explain it.
Yeah.
Um, can you like tell me about how you got into that and kind of the process, what you go to copy one of those songs?
Yeah. So I mean, a lot of that stemmed from like, okay, yeah, obviously, like I said, I got into Yellow Card and a lot of pop punk music, and that naturally transitioned into like, like your Avenged Sevenfolds and your Bullet for My Valentines, and then it went into Devil Wears Prada, and then like the whole metalcore run, and then like, I'm into lots of things now, um but like then I just like loved the metal music. I was just like so into metal music, and I'm like, wow. And then I would watch I was really into like watching covers of people playing video games because I love video games, mainly like Nintendo and like Sonic the Hedgehog stuff, like you had
Hmm.
mentioned. But I would watch, it was like videos on YouTube of people just like they would have the song on in the background, and everything was just like camera audio, and they were just turning their amp really loud and just like playing on top of the track or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, but then I saw it was two different YouTubers. The first guy, and I really loved his stuff. He doesn't really do it anymore. It was this guy named CS Guitar 89.
Hmm.
Um, and the other guy, Family Jewels. He's like big in that scene of like doing metal, video game covers. He kind of rules the land
Yeah.
when it comes to that stuff. But what was different about that was like I was like, whoa, they're like making their own compositions. Like they're like it's like it's like I'm listening to the song and not just like camera audio of someone playing like on top of it or whatever. And it was just like, wow. And that kind of led into like my love of like recording a little bit. Like it was just like, oh, like how do I do that? So those were the two kind of big main influences. And then obviously like I'm a big Sonic head. I guess he's like my favorite video game character. He's the one I talk about the most, obviously.
You have a very
Um,
expensive guitar with him on it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I guess that's fair to say. It's just because I also love Mario, but I don't talk about it nearly as much because well, everybody loves Mario, so whatever. But what's it called? But yeah, and so just I just oh, I want to do that too, and so after I got the courage to to beef up my recording skills, I finally was like, okay, let me do this on YouTube like they do it, and do my own style, because I see a lot of love for Mario, a lot of love for Zelda, a lot of love for whatever. But I
Hmm.
didn't really see too much Sonic stuff.
Yeah,
There's a lot of it now. I'm not saying I changed the game or anything, but I was like, oh, I'd really like to hear this.
sure.
Um, and so yeah, and so basically, I guess that process just kind of depends on the mood or whatever. Like you said, especially in the early days, it was just kind of all right, let's make this a metal version of this song. So take the chord progression, okay, how do I turn this into dumb palm mutes, and then play the melody over it and whatever. Um, but now I try to be a little more because the metal video game cover thing has been done to death.
Hmm.
There's just so many people that do it, and it's just I feel like I'm not really bringing any originality to that scope anymore.
Sure.
So with the more recent ones, I try to incorporate other genres more and try to make it, I guess, a little more proggy,
Hmm.
a little more interesting, instead of just a straight okay, this is just a metal cover, because it's just it's been done to death. And truth be told, I almost want to kind of calm down from the metal thing a little bit and just
Hmm.
maybe make it just more unique.
No, I totally
Um,
get it.
yeah.
Um, so when you're crafting these songs, and the reason I ask is because sometimes video game music, just despite what someone just playing a game might think, is actually pretty orchestral. Like there's a lot of stuff happening. How are you kind of breaking those parts down? And I know since you're taking them and turning them into chugs and such, how are you doing the drum parts? Are you programming them individually? Do you have like MIDI stuff you've already, saved? I guess I don't walk me through that a little bit.
Yeah, well, I guess truth be told, I mean the process is could and can has been radically different from project to project, because even I don't know, even today, I'm just I have no idea what to do for the drums. I have no idea what to program, and I'm so bad at programming and all these things and blah blah blah. And then at the end of the day, somehow it gets solved, and that's just the beauty of making music. I guess it just happens, and you're like, oh, okay, because I the way that I write, I'm not I don't know. I would say most kind of artistic people were you know like where they get into like a jam session or whatever, right? And a bunch of people, some guys playing a beat on the drums, and he's like, oh bro, let me play something on top of that. And then they just write something like that on the spot, and that terrifies me. That's just not how my brain works at all.
Hmm.
For me, it's just kind of sometimes I'll have I don't know, a section of a video game song, or even one of my own songs, where it's just okay, let me I'll duplicate it 3 different times, and then I'll okay, let me try it with this drum pattern on the second run, and then let me try something different on the guitar here, and then I'm listening to it over and over and over again, and then I'll sit on it for a little bit, and then I'll go to bed, and then I'll come back, and I'm like, wait, I can do something that sounds so much cooler. And so for me, it's kind of I really take my time with it, which is not the greatest thing for something like YouTube, and that's why my videos take forever to come out. But you know that's just
Uh,
how my brain works, because whenever I force it, whenever I'm just that's fine,
hmm.
and then put it out there, I'm always I really wish I would have taken more time
Hmm.
to flesh it out. Because at the end of the day, if the idea resonates with me and I enjoy it,
Hmm.
that's cool. That's something that I can be proud of, instead of just feeling oh, other people would like this, and this, because that's why I mainly cover Sonic stuff, and not other stuff, because it's that's just it's not super niche, but I could be covering other big songs or big video game franchises, like Halo or something like that. And it's just
Right.
truth be told, I've never played a Halo game in my life. That's just so that's just never been my style, to try to appease people for views or whatever. Um but yeah, as far as composing, like I said, I try to keep it fresh. I try to keep it new. In the early days, it was just whatever melody I heard in a song, because like you said, there's a lot of layers.
Hmm.
I tried to put it everything had to be guitar. Everything was guitar, guitar, guitar. The harmonies, and these harmonies are the vocals, and then once everything is 100 guitar tracks. It just doesn't sound good anymore. It's just like there's just too much. So but in a way, it's kind of helped me learn more about like composing for the sake of the song. Like
Hmm.
something. It feels really empty here. So instead of going like, oh, throw a guitar solo or something, it's like, hey, no, like it's like missing something in like the low mids or something, something to kind of help round out the frequency scope of a song, to think about it. And then in turn, like it just makes the song much more interesting than just like, 10 guitars, playing similar things, So
Yeah.
I guess that's kind of like my thought process.
Gotcha. You made really good points. Like I kind of feel that way too. I also feel like all of it is a lesson. Like, 'cause it doesn't really end. Same thing with like guitar or mixing and just audio engineering or even just making videos and stuff like we're doing. There's really never a point at which you stop learning. Like there's always something coming in. And if you do stop learning, you've chosen to stop, I suppose.
Yeah. I no, I feel that big time, and I never really want to seem like that guy, like that sort of engineer, on the side, before the big move, I used to do a lot of AV work, a lot of stagehand stuff.
Hmm.
Um, and so, I worked at one of the casinos in Las Vegas. And like, every now and then they would bring a different kind of, audiovisual crew to like produce the show. And I just kind of have to like hook them into the building and things like that.
Hmm.
And then every now and then you'll get the audio guy who's running in there and he's like, well, we got to do it this way because blah 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 blah, and like I mixed for Aerosmith and the Beatles and like blah blah blah, like,
Yeah.
and it's just like I never want to be that ever, like like you said, like I feel like once you stop learning, you stop kind of growing,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, and then once you're in your head that like, oh yeah, like I know how to do this, I know everything, then I don't know, you just kind of seem like an asshole.
Exactly.
It's just like, I don't know, dude. It's just like we're not to get like super philosophical, but we're like so minuscule in the grand scheme of things. It's like it's okay not to know everything. So it's it is what it is.
No, no, it's exactly like kind of exactly how I feel, but I also feel like you've only based on what you're coming back from what you're saying that you only got so long anyhow. It's up to you how you make use of it. But I kind of feel like I'm one of those people, and I kind of get the point feeling that you are. Sorry,
Hmm.
that it's kind of you kind of always want to feel like something's growing or you're getting something out of it and making progress, whether that's an art or just an overall arcing thing. If we're going to be deep about life, you should want
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
things to be better all the time
yeah,
or to better yourself at least.
yeah.
Uh,
Exactly. I mean, yeah. That's I don't know. That's just kind of the philosophy that like I've gone behind because it's like nobody has the answers. Like I don't know, whatever. Just chill and have fun. Try.
make use of your time. No, I get it. This is awesome. I appreciate that you're being open with me.
Oh, no worries, man.
All right. So you kind of touched on this, but you're doing all the programming yourself?
Yeah, so yeah, pretty much. I'm still very much a one man machine when
Hmm.
it's a lot of these projects. Not really by choice, just because I don't know. I'm just so used to working that way. But yeah,
Sure.
really the only thing that's me. It's whenever I'm playing the guitars and the bass, I do track like real bass for like the tracks and stuff. But everything else, drum, strings, synths, that's all programmed.
Nice.
Yeah.
No, I kind of work the same if I'm demoing stuff, even if for I don't know several years now. Like if I'll demo a song and then kind of give the demo over to the band and then learn it that way. And as time has went on, it's gotten to where I am no longer just demoing it. Like we use some of the stuff that I tracked originally to just retrack drums too and stuff. So the worlds have kind of meshed. But I don't know, man. Like programming in general, I think sometimes gets a bad rap. I'm not sure why, but and I think it's that weird like not being able to disconnect from like this can never sound as good as the real thing, which is clearly not the case anymore.
No, and it's just like it's in yeah. I'm actually glad you mentioned that because like there's a lot of weird stigmas like that in like in like audio and stuff. And again, I'm not claiming to be like an authority on anything or whatever, but like how often have you like have been on your way to learning audio and stuff, and it's like, oh, it's got to be like this, or if you don't track real drums, it's not like a real record and blah 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 blah. But like time and time again, how many records do you know that like okay, this is a sample replaced, but like oh, it sounds good. So like, and that's like that should always just be the goal to make it sound good, not to fill whatever like philosophical hole in your brain to like to feel achieved or whatever. It's just like how many records use auto tune. Like I love Katy Perry. I listen to Katy
Right.
Perry like every day, and it's just like, yeah, this is pop music. It needs to sound like this, or like
Sure.
country. It just like, and like for sure, I was down that rabbit hole too, where it's just like, oh well, if it's not for real, then like blah blah blah. But like nobody cares. Like nobody, and it's just like, and like, and like you mentioned earlier, it's just we're getting to a point when it comes to like samples and IRs and stuff where it's just like it's getting so realistic. Like how many albums do you know where like the guitars were just like, oh, this was an amp sim. This was just like, a plug-in, and it's just like, it's times change, man. It's just evolve, go with it, don't, I mean there is a place for like obviously to have great quality samples, they need to have been recorded properly,
Sure.
and IRs need to be shot, well, and I'm not great at miking up a guitar cab. Like I'm not gonna, you know, sit here and pretend like I am, but like with the wonderful world of IRs and stuff, like okay, I can put out music with this nice technology that's like available to us now. Because like before, otherwise my guitars would sound like crap, and like so like I don't know. I welcome it. Like I'm all about like modeling and technology and like whatever we can do to like simplify the process, and not let's not gatekeep like try to disinformation from everybody, because that's just so
Right.
that's silly. Yeah.
No, I'm 40, so I'm a bit older than you, I believe.
No, you're
Hopefully.
good, bro. Yeah.
Yeah. But I kind of came in at the tail end of an era. Like when I went to college for audio engineering
Oh,
in
cool.
2000, and we were still doing a good portion of the class on 2-inch tape. Like Pro Tools was only
Wow.
on Pro Tools 5, I think, at the time.
Okay.
And it was still, there was no lighter version, like other than like you could buy the old inbox if you remember those, like Focusrite made them originally,
Hmm.
and then they split up or whatever. But that was about it. At home, if you wanted to record, that's as close as you could get to Pro Tools, but it was very limited.
Hmm.
But it was just because it was limited in general. It hadn't gotten there yet. So
Exactly.
yeah.
And that in turn, to kind of build off your point, because sometimes I get in my head, right?
Hmm.
But because of that wonderful technology that is so accessible now, there's just so many guys out there just like kind of doing the same thing, and sometimes better than you. And like I get in my head a ton about like because I love gear and equipment and stuff, and I have some nice equipment around me, some nice amps, and then I'll see some guy on Instagram who's just got like his like Scarlett 2i2 and just like archetype whatever
Hmm.
plug in, and then like he rules, and he's just like, oh, he's such a great player, and then like wow, he's got more followers than me, and it's just like it's so for me that's very much an aspect that lives in my head a bunch,
Hmm.
but also like it also is like wonderful that we have that opportunity, so yeah.
No, I agree. I figure I'll tell you, I found your thing, because your YouTube channel, because I was looking for Helix LT videos, because I ended up getting one on some crazy, like, probably not legal exchange, for like $600, like brand new.
Oh, well, that's a good deal. That's a
Yeah, and I
very
was
good
like, I
deal.
couldn't say no to it, because I have the Stomp, which I had paid almost that same amount of money for. I was like, well, there's
Yeah.
no, I'm sorry, no way that I'm going to say no to it. So, no, I started looking for videos of people using it and like explaining how they would use it in their rigs and stuff. And your video was the first one that came up.
Oh.
I think you were using the LT with the Sonic stuff at the time.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, yeah, like the line six Helix, I adore that thing, man. That thing is like my religion. Like like that thing is that has solved so many problems for me. It's just so simple,
It's incredibly direct. Like I switched to it in the beginning of the pandemic just because I was like, well, I'm not gonna be going anywhere to like record or
Hmm.
getting studio time, or I'm at home. I'm not gonna be able to mic a giant cab or anything. So I was like, maybe it's just time to give it a shot again. I used the Helix, or not Helix, the Pod LT initially.
Mm, okay, yeah.
Like, sorry about that. The longer, like I don't know, early 2000s, maybe. I don't know. It was the big red rack mount deal.
Mm-hmm.
And I used it for a long time, and I never thought it sounded bad. And the other guy that I played in a band with at the time had like a Mesa head and stuff, and I always was like, oh, I'm envious of his rig.
Sure, sure.
And we played shows, and people would always compliment my stuff. Sorry, my doorbell's going off.
Oh no, you're good, bro.
But yeah, people would be like complimenting my tone over the other. I was like, I don't know, man. He's got like this $2,000 amp head and all stuff, and I've just got this like $600 rack unit and a terrible power amp.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I don't know, man. It's just like I don't know. My heart always goes out for like modelers and stuff like that because like again like line 6 kind of does play a big part into in like my upbringing a little bit with guitar because obviously like okay I liked pop punk or whatever and rock and metal, so like okay I needed like an amp that had a lot of distortion,
Yeah.
um but like I didn't know anything about gear. I didn't know I didn't know anything. Like I didn't, I just wanted distortion or whatever. Yeah, whatever yellow card sounded like, that's what I wanted, so my dad, he took me to Guitar Center, and I felt like a big adult too because I was just like, I think it was like Christmas or something, and he was gonna like, all right, like we're gonna get you an amp, for X, this is your cap and price and blah blah blah.
Hmm.
And so like I went up to like the one of the employees and I'm like, hey, like, I'm looking for like a cool amp and blah blah blah. I'm trying to do distortion and like this guy, kudos to the sales guy because he knew exactly like what to sell me. A person
Hmm.
that didn't know anything about gear, he's just like, oh, you got to try this or whatever. And it was the Spider 3 combo amp, and like he was just showing me like, yeah, like you turn this one knob and it changes the sounds like from clean to insane and everything in between, and there's a lot of artist presets and it was like a bunch of artists that I knew and I was like, whoa, so like that was always like super cool to me. And I played that thing until for every day for forever. Like I gave it away eventually in the trade for I have a Schecter Sun Valley Super Shredder guitar. That's what I
Hmm.
traded it for. And I feel bad because it was like, wow, that amp was so cool for me back in the day. But like, I don't play it anymore, so it's just not a big deal. But yeah, but so then I was always like a big Line 6 guy, and then after that, like I put a few years into that, and then after I was learning more about gear and stuff. I wanted a big boy thing, big boy rig or whatever, like tube amp and like whatever. So I also wanted like a Mesa and stuff. But
Yeah.
went back to Guitar Center, talked to a different guy. This guy just sold me more Line 6 stuff. So then like I had the DT25, like the tube head.
Hmm.
And then that's when I was introduced to the Pod HD stuff and that whole world. And that's when I got into like more like recording direct
Hmm.
and IRs and stuff like that. And then after that, that's when I like graduated to like Helix and stuff. So um
Nice.
yeah.
They're super useful. It's one of those things that I shied away from for a bit just because it's like, I wanted, have a ton of pedals and do all that stuff. I still do, like they're all like they're kind of packed away at the moment, but there's literally a box with like 50 guitar pedals next to me.
Wow.
But it's like I don't use them now. So it's like, and I'm also not interested. Like I'll see something come out, and unless it's something really wild, like one of the Earthquaker pedals or something I have yet to figure out how to duplicate inside of Helix.
Hmm.
But like if it's not something super weird that I know is going to be super hard to recreate, then I don't really pay attention to them anymore. Like I'll see stuff come out and be like, that's cool. Also, I don't need it. Like I have no use for it.
Yeah, and that's just like that's kind of the struggle I'm in more often these days than not is just kind of like, well, like because of like these nice modelers and stuff, I really don't have like the edge for like new gear as much anymore, because it's just like, oh well, this just does like everything I needed to do. So like I'm just like, my old bandmate, because we're talking about the reunion show and stuff. So he was like, I'm gonna fly out for it. So I'm like, oh, I'm gonna put together a little fly rig and blah blah blah. And he got super inspired and he's looking at like the Strymon Iridium pedal, and it's supposed
Hmm.
to be like 3 amps in one sort of deal, and and it's just like a pedal size thing, and it's like it's got IRs and you can switch between the IRs, and it's like $400 and like just a whole world that like I just don't like think about anymore. And it's just like, oh
Hmm.
wow, look at you know what they're doing and stuff. So that's the struggle, right? Because I'm over here trying to be like a gear channel, and I'm like, I don't really care about it anymore. It's, I mean, I still do. Like, I'm big on like, I'm big on like modifying, guitars and pickups and stuff like that. So there's still, and there's still tons of stuff I could do, you know,
Hmm.
in just the Line 6 world alone. So I should really start making more videos, honestly speaking. But you know,
I feel you on that. You know that I get into periods of time where I'm doing specifically line stick stuff for a while,
hmm
and they do seem to do okay, which is neither here nor there. Like it helps people. That's cool. I mean, that's how I literally how I found you, as I explained. But at times I'm just like, this is there's so many people doing this already. It can't be. I can't be adding anything.
oh, that's how I feel too, and that's kind of how I discovered you too, because we have a mutual friend, Nick Hill.
Uh,
Because
I
I
actually
remember
did a
we.
recording with Nick,
Oh, nice, yeah.
and then the IRs that I sent you, I made with Nick as well.
Yeah. So yeah, so like, because I was doing it a little bit, and like a lot of people were jumping into the Line 6 Helix thing. And now he's far surpassed me now. He's like double in whatever I have in subscribers, I think. Um, so he's doing great, and he's doing metal
Hmm.
stuff. So it's just like, okay, he's doing, great in metal stuff. Like, all right, what can I do to like, offer what's already out there or whatever. So it's just, you know, it's it's that shouldn't like kill the spirit into wanting to make more videos or whatever, but it's just
Hmm.
like, it's just like, it's just so there's just so many guys doing it out there. So just kind of I find myself like, well, I don't really care about gear anymore, and it's like, and like everyone's already like done videos on this, so like, should I keep going? But like, it's, I got a little following, a little, some nice loyal guys there, so we'll keep cranking them out while I can.
Right. Yeah, I kind of look at it like maybe it's just because of your vibe, I guess, for lack of a better term, like how you're approaching the thing. Even if someone else has done it or has even arguably done it better, sometimes it's just the person and like that they're comfortable getting the information from, or they feel like they
Sure.
connect more with how you're approaching it.
Yeah.
And I think that's where having multiple people doing it is a benefit because I may not be for everyone, you may not, you know what I mean? Like we
Oh yeah,
don't know.
absolutely. Yeah. I saw like a great like little meme that was just like, oh duh. Like, it was like two panels of like a comic book thing, and it's like some guy bringing in like a little cake that he baked, right? And he
Hmm.
puts it down next to like a way bigger, nicer cake. And it's like, oh man, look at how awesome that cake is. Like, my cake sucks compared to that cake, right? And then it cuts down to the second panel, like some random bystander coming by, and he says, like, oh sweet, two cakes, and that's how
Right.
like, yeah, and it's just like that's how you should be thinking about things, not like, oh man, look how awesome they are. I'll never be that awesome. Like, other people are just like, oh cool, like another video, like, this guy's take, or this guy's like, this guy's cake or whatever. So it's always, you have to remind yourself, like, like, at the end of the day, do it for you. Do it for
Right.
fun. Do it because you love it, not because, you know, you need to get more views, or you won't do it because this guy has so many views. It's like, you love gear, you love what you do, then do it.
Right. No, I completely agree. I feel like anytime that even because it's hard not to kind of fall into that bug in making videos for YouTube where I've been like, I should make more of this one because this one did better than this other video that I enjoyed making more, but
Mm-hmm.
this other one had more people watch it. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, I suppose there's one day, and I can't remember what it's because of this little section of it. I don't remember what the content of the actual video was.
No worries.
So I did this thing where I filmed from like 8 different angles and matched like this shot for shot process of how they like shot some movie. I just looked it up on YouTube, like how to make interesting shots of like kind of boring things.
Yeah, sure.
So it was just like me walking to get a coffee, but like out of a like DoorDash delivered bag,
Sure.
but like putting the camera inside the bag. So like, like
Oh, yeah, yeah,
doing
yeah,
all
yeah,
this
yeah.
crazy shit, and then
Mm-hmm.
like I set the camera to where you could see my feet going into the kitchen, and like it was like this doing all these dumb angles. It's at the beginning of one of my videos somewhere. I spent like 5 hours on that, and then I there was an actual video attached to it. I don't remember what it is.
Yeah.
Just explaining how to do something on guitar, but even that part of it was so distracting to me that I don't even know what I did beyond there.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
also like that video didn't do well, and I think I it's because of that.
Right, right, and it's yeah, it's trying to refine that like that ride that fine line, but like in your brain, whether because you can see it on paper, like oh, this obviously maybe this didn't translate so well with people, but like your brain had a good time doing it and it was
Hmm.
fun for you, so like like who cares if nobody watched this or whatever. And like I need to forget that too because um like the my most successful video on my channel is a Sonic the Hedgehog medley.
Hmm.
um that was like at 160,000 views.
Nice.
And so like oh awesome, right? And but like at the time like I didn't really care about that, because like I said I love Sonic. And so I just wanted to do like a tribute, like a celebration, to show like, oh wow, like this means so much to me. I want to do like a big like whatever. So I did my Sonic medley, and the video is like 18 minutes long, and it like goes through like it's like one song per game pretty much, and it's just like it was super cumbersome. It took me 3 months to do. And it was like because of like that video, I switched to
Hmm.
one of these trackball mice because like after like my wrist was dead, I was just like oh my god, it was like in pain because of all like the programming and editing. And um but I put it and I didn't care, it like I only had like 400 subscribers, and like I was lucky to get like 100 views, but I was like no, like I made this video and like I'm super proud of it, and like that's all that matters. And it's still like probably my favorite video that I've ever done. I feel like I've gotten better tones and like whatever after the fact for sure, but like the I remember the passion behind it, and I remember the what it took to make it and to be really proud of it. And like I think eventually, like once you find your audience, like
Hmm.
they recognize that too at some point, and then
For
those are the
sure.
ones that like stick around. Those are the ones that like lift you up and stuff. So you know you gotta I don't know if you watch like Game Grumps on YouTube, but one of the guys talks about like the good brain juice,
Hmm.
to give yourself dopamine or whatever. And it's like you know if that like you know suits your fancy to like do like a all the different angles and stuff, like that's super cool. I sorry not to like go off to a tangent, but like I'm I'm like a film guy but not really a film guy.
Hmm.
My least favorite process in everything is doing the video. Like that's like my least favorite thing to do when it comes to like YouTube and stuff, which is funny because it's like that's
Same.
what you need to
Yeah.
do. Because it's like setting up the camera, and then it's like okay, white balance, and then you gotta like all right, blah 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 blah. Then you gotta edit, and it's just like super. And then when you're a one man show, it's like okay, you gotta focus, and it's like it's just like a lot of work. It's a lot of just like at least for the style of videos that like kind of like what we do, it's like not really a whole lot of room to make it like very interesting, like camera work wise. So it's just kind of like okay, set it up to make it look good, and it's just like I guess it's sort of mundane, not that it's not like fun or something to be proud of at the end of the day, but it's just like
Hmm.
everything video related. I'm just like, nope, I don't really like it. So, yeah.
I get it. I'm always envious of the ones that it's just like somebody just sitting there, kind of just talking, where they've like figured out a way to do that, where they can have things like be presented just like in imagery,
Mm-hmm.
and that's their entire channel. Like the whole vibe is that no matter what,
Mm-hmm.
there's no like clever anything, but they still have like millions of followers. And, like I'm kind of envious of that because I feel like I end up like shooting different angles on like for guitar playthroughs, and
Mm-hmm.
then you end up spending hours and hours and hours just to do like a video that's maybe 15 minutes long. When all it's said and done, and you've spent hours and hours doing it, and someone else probably just turned on a camera and started talking.
Oh yeah, dude. Like that's the like I'm working for a company called Black Salt Audio now.
Hmm.
We talked about that a little bit. And like now I'm doing that way more often than I've ever had to. And it's just like I oftentimes have to script a lot of things. I have to write my bullet points down and make sure that I have it all. Otherwise, I'll forget or I won't present it in the best way that I can. But there are
Hmm.
other guys like like Ola England. Like he's the kind of guy that's just like, all right, turns the camera on. He's just like, whatever, blah blah blah. And then you love watching the guy because his personality's so big, and
Right.
he's just so fun to watch. And it's just like, man, yeah, I'm way envious of like those guys because I just don't have that kind of. I think it kind of stems from like the part of my brain that works. Like how I was saying, I'm not big into like jam sessions and stuff. I'm
Hmm.
just not like an instant improv guy. Because whenever I do, it's not good. But when I take my time with stuff, then it's like, okay, this is like decent now. It's that's just like I've just never been that guy. But yeah, I totally feel you on that.
Do you, I guess, adding to what you were saying there, do you have any issue knowing when to walk away from something? I feel like that's a question that I ask a lot of musicians, not necessarily here, but just in
Hmm.
general.
Like like writing a song
Yeah,
or
like how do you know when you're done?
um that's a good question. I feel like I've evolved a lot, um, like as a songwriter to where like I really don't hang on to things a lot, Like typically um, like when I'm doing one of my songs, it's just kind of like okay, like I have a Pro Tool session open and I just kind of do like a riff salad, like whatever is in my brain and try to like flesh out, all right, this could be like a pre-chorus, it's kind of sounding like a chorus, all right, whatever. And
Hmm.
then maybe I'll do another version of that, or like this will be the intro or whatever, blah 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 blah. Just kind of just dump, mind dump everything onto the session, and then I'll go back and then I'll listen to something and I'm like, this sucks, and I'll just delete it. I just won't even save it. I'm not even like, well, if I tweak the drums this way, blah blah. If it's just like not inherently like a good idea, like or at least for my head standards, if I'm just like not digging it, I'll just delete it. I'm just like, yeah, whatever. All right, next thing, whatever. Let's get to the good stuff, or
Hmm.
let's have the good stuff inspire other stuff, and you know, because in the early days, I was definitely like, okay, like, well, like, oh, there's something there, and let me work it out, and blah 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 blah. And then you spend so much time on like something that's just like just kind of blah, it's just not that great. Um, but as far as like when it's done, I don't know. That's a good question. Um, because sometimes I don't know. I'm getting better at it for sure. But then it's like on my EP, I have like a 9-minute song, and I'm like, well, did it really need to be like that long? But like that's to me like once you play it all out, I'm like, yeah, that's how long I feel like it needed to be. So like, it's not, and then it's me not trying to be like a pretentious like, oh, to like, express my creative brain. It needed to be like this long or whatever. It's just like, no, it's just like that's what worked for me. I've always loved that in like, you know, in the music that I like that. And I think that's why like I got into like prog and stuff because it's just like, oh, it just does whatever it wants. And to me, that's just like so cool, like um a little different, but like freaking like Abbey Road like invented prog like that, like the Abbey Road medley on the second half of the
Hmm.
album. Oh my god, that's like the coolest thing I've ever heard. I was like, whoa, they sing like the melody at the beginning of the medley, and then like the third song to the end or whatever, it like brings back like the main vocal idea, and it's like, whoa, like my brain was just like it like exploded, like wow, like music could just do whatever it wants. It doesn't need to be like intro, verse, chorus,
Yeah.
stuff like that. But I don't know. I guess I really don't have an answer. I'm just like it's just done when it's done. I guess I don't know.
I'm kind of the same. At some point, I just kind of I also kind of feel like I get bored with it. So even if it's something I really enjoy, once I start like getting to a point where I'm just adding things to see if it works, then it doesn't need it anymore. Like
Hmm.
I'm past the point of needing to add anything, and I'm just putting stuff on it to put it there now.
Yeah, I feel like I run into that a lot too, where I tend to maybe overcomplicate things or overwrite
Hmm.
in fear of it sounding too boring. Like, oh, this is too boring. But then I'll listen to like pop music, and I'm just like, oh, this is just like the bass, the drums, and they're singing, and like that's it. And I'm like, oh, but it's so good, it sounds so great. So it's
Hmm.
like, yeah, it can be done. It has been done. I'm just afraid of again going back to my part of the brain. I think it's just me afraid of seeming like lesser or whatever. But you know, it is what it is. It's you deal with it, and then you learn from it, because then you go back, you put out something, and you go back and you're like, oh, okay, I can see how I can improve as an artist, and like this is way too long, and there's too much going on here, we can make this more simple, so yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, it's it can be very complex or it can be very simpler, and I think there's a way to have the happy medium, but it's a little tricky to identify where that is. So sometimes it's best just to like, all right, this is done. I think like,
Yeah, exactly, just like,
like
all right, let's walk away.
yeah, and then I still have it happen. I'll listen to recordings I did years ago, and then be like, "Oh, we could have done this or this." And it was like, also, it wouldn't have been that thing had we done anything different. So
Exactly.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
weird. It's weird how that works.
hmm
It's strange. So we touched on a couple of the things that were a part of other.
Oh,
Uh,
see, I do that where I just like ramble, like I have
no, you're
annoying,
good, man.
like I
Same.
interviewing myself, but like that's just my brain. I apologize.
That's fine. No, we kind of covered the black salt stuff because I was going to ask you about that, and we talked about upgrading guitars and things a little. My last questions were more silly and not music related.
Awesome.
Um, what are you? We both like Spider-Man stuff a lot. I see you post
Yeah,
things,
Spider-Man. Oh my
yeah.
God, we're gonna be here forever, bro.
Well, I'll try to keep it short then.
No worries.
What do you want them to do moving forward in the movies? Like, where are you at with your feelings on the movie after the last one?
Oh, good question. Oh my goodness, this is gonna be all right. I'll try to make it as concise as possible.
All right.
Um, I saw the first Spider-Man movie with Tobey Maguire when I was like 9 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like the coolest movie I've ever seen in the world at the time. So I'm big on Team Tobey Maguire. It always has been, always probably always will be.
Mm-hmm.
There are aspects of the other two versions that I do enjoy very, very much, actually. Um, it's hard to say. It's hard to dig into that without talking about like the MCU a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, like big comic book nerd. Speaking of which, I was so into Spider Man that I would draw a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I got like okay at it. So I thought I was just gonna become like a comic book artist and like do that at one point. And then I heard Ocean Avenue, and I'm just like, well, I'm not doing that anymore. It just like stopped. Um,
Literally the same. I have him on my arm
oh, that's
upside,
so cool. Nice.
and I got
That's
it done
awesome.
when I was like 18 or something. But it was the same thing. Like I was getting into more and more art stuff, but also picking up music at the same time. And then I kind of went away from the art stuff as much. I've gotten back to it as I've gotten older, but like
Oh, nice.
it's uh it's weird because I definitely feel like it's not like riding a bicycle because if you don't, the same thing with the music stuff. If you're not continuing to do it, you can't just walk away. If there are those few people that can walk away and come back like nothing
Mhm.
happened, but for the most part, most people like, you have to kind of rebuild up where you were, and hope that you even get as good as you were the last time.
Oh yeah, like all of this takes practice, man. Because it's like
Yeah,
if you're not writing songs, you're not gonna get good at writing songs.
right,
And then when you come back to it, like this happens to me all the time. I always take far too long of a break between like gear demos or writing songs or whatever, and then I come back and I'm just like I don't know what to do. Like I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do anymore. Um, but uh, but yeah, but I think that's another thing too, because of like it, with art, like drawing specifically, it's just like it's very time consuming and it's such a patient, delicate process. Where like recording, especially with like the gear that we have now, there's just such instant gratification to it, and that's
mm,
probably why I like it more than like drawing because it's just like you can spend so many hours on a drawing and then for it to suck in the end, and you're just like, oh man, that's just like heartbreaking. But like when you're doing engineering stuff, it's like okay, you lay a riff down, I'm like, not great, or you lay something down, I'm like, oh, that there's potential there or whatever.
right.
Um, but going back to Spider-Man, so yeah, I love that original trilogy, even the third one, even though it's a dumpster fire. I recognize that it's not a good movie, but I do get a lot of enjoyment out of it. And so that's kind of where my mind is, and like you know, there have been movies like the Dark Knight trilogy, and like some other really good comic book stuff. And I was
Mm,
obviously like a lot of people, I was way into the MCU also. Like, man, like I like cried my eyes out like during Endgame and stuff. And so I was
mm,
just like, so I was in there. So I want to preface that because I don't want to sound like I'm like an anti-Marvel guy. But I don't know if you follow it so closely, but like Phase 4 has not been stellar in my opinion. I have not been like a big fan of like a lot of the stuff post Avengers Endgame that they put out. Um
a few of them I was okay with,
mhm,
like the Thors and stuff didn't really do anything for me.
mhm.
And I liked Doctor Strange too, just because there was a lot of weird cameo stuff in it. There was some
Mhm.
exciting parts because of that, and it being a Sam Raimi thing, it
Oh
kind of had
yeah, I
its
was
own thing going.
Oh yeah, I went into it like yeah, but that's okay. That's ugh, all right. Did you see? This is like we could do
We're
a
in
whole.
Tangentville. It's
I
fine.
yeah, I warned you. But what's it called? That's the thing though. That's like okay. Obviously, I was excited because Sam Raimi, right? Duh.
Mhm,
Um, and I think that's what's like the problem with like it's just turning into like Cameo City and
mhm,
like just checking off boxes in like a lot of the shows and the movies now, where it's just like it just seems like the filmmakers are just like all right, that's all that we have to do. And then people will go see it. And it's like, and I'm still adding to the problem. Like, yeah, of course I'm gonna go see it. And I'm like complaining about it or whatever. But it's just like, you know, it's it's hard to say. But to answer your question without no more tangents. Obviously I enjoyed No Way Home
mhm,
very much because we all know who shows up at the end. Um, but to me that had an added layer of like it's not obviously it's like Cameo City in that movie too, but it is very much a Spider-Man story,
mhm,
which is what I appreciated about No Way Home because this is another really hot take, but like I'm not like big on like the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies,
mhm.
um, just because like I don't know he's just I don't know again I'm not gonna get into that a lot, but like he starts to feel like Peter Parker finally, right? Like the whole decision
Mhm.
to like, hey, blah blah blah, the Spider-Man, everybody knows who I am. Doctor Strange, can you help me? And then it like goes wrong. And then like, Doctor Strange's like, well, we gotta send them back. They're gonna die, but like whatever. And he's just like, no, I can't let that happen. That's such a Peter Parker thing. And it's finally like the Tom Holland Spider-Man is finally now like reacting to like being an active character instead of a reactive character. Because in
Mhm.
the other ones, he's like fighting Iron Man's villains, and then like it's just like it's like
Right.
not his problems, but like it's his movie. Like I don't know, it's just I don't
I
know,
get
whatever.
you.
But going forward, hard to say. I'm at a point where like I don't want it I don't want it to sound so harsh, but like yeah, I kind of don't care anymore. I'm kind of like, I'm just like, I don't know. Phase 4 has been such a slump for me. And I have, like I said, I haven't really been too impressed with like the newer Spider-Man movies personally. Like, but if you enjoy it, that's super cool. I can see why. Tom Holland is a great actor. He's arguably the best guy to portray the character.
Mhm.
But I don't know. Like whatever they do is just I just can't see it being, done very tastefully, I guess. So like whatever they do in the future, it's just feels like now it's just gonna be like, okay, like whatever cameo we can do. They just announced like Hugh Jackman's coming back to play Wolverine and Deadpool 3 or
Deadpool, yeah.
whatever. And it's just like, it's just like that now. And it's like Doctor Strange, like, oh, who's in it? What's the cameos? Instead of like, hey, how about we just let Sam Raimi make like a freaking crazy Doctor Strange movie? Because like to me personally, that whole like kind of second act is just feels like way out of place for me in like Doctor Strange 2. It's just like I don't know. It's just like, all right, put some cameos in there, and it's just like, well, okay, I don't know. I'm, I'll always be there, but I'm like, I'm not really like, oh, it's got to be like this or it's got to be like that. I'm just like, whatever the kids want, I guess. I don't know. Is my
Right.
answer.
I kind of feel like I'm kind of the same. Like it's because there's been so much. Like there's just constantly every year there's like three or four movies, and it's like okay, that's cool. Like it's all like you can look at it like it's cool that they took like 20 years to build all this crazy stuff that intertwines. That's
Sure.
super brilliant, but it's also getting to a point where it's like we get that like in the comic books they can go like multiple versions of the characters and stuff and still keep your attention.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the film version of things, because every movie's kind of the same no matter what,
Mm-hmm.
like good guy, bad, you know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
there's little moments that'll like bring you back to the book version of it, which is cool. But I think sometimes like that super broad world that was in the books is not really the best for movies because it's too much. Like there's too many things going on. Like Spider-Man 3, even though the Raimi one, like there's too much happening.
That's a perfect example, yeah. And it's like it's not like I'm against compromise,
Right.
because if anything, I personally like to kind of go back to the Spider-Man thing a little bit. Like I remember when the bad bandwagon at the time was like, oh, the Tobey Maguire movies were bad and the Andrew Garfield movies are good.
Hmm.
This is the best version of Spider-Man because he's got web shooters, or "No, he did it like this and it happened in the comic book, so this is superior or whatever." And like again, I'm a big fan of Andrew Garfield and his portrayal. I do enjoy that first Amazing Spider-Man quite a bit. I think maybe more because of nostalgia, because like I remember like there was nobody that didn't want that movie to happen more than me,
Hmm.
because I was such a Toby fan. But once I did see it, I was like, oh wow, like there's something here. Even though I would say it's a pretty average movie. And and the second one is just to me the worst Spider-Man movie. But
Amazing too. Yeah, it's
the
pretty
Amazing
rough.
Spider-Man 2, it's again another a telltale sign of like there's too much going on. And it's
Hmm.
like, oh, but it's in the comic book, so we gotta put it in there because like that's what people like to see. It's just um and it's just like so much of the focus is that like there are other moments in like that movie Amazing Spider-Man 2, like like that are genuinely good, and I'm like, wow, like this is such like there's a little montage where like like him and Gwen like broke up, and he's doing his Spider-Man things, and like
Hmm.
there's a kid with his wind turbine, and the kids are bullying him, and like Spider-Man scares them off, and he like fixes his wind turbine with his web, and he like walks them home, and I'm just like, wow, like that's such a Spider-Man thing. Like the Tom
Hmm.
Holland Spider-Man could never like he doesn't do things like that. Or there's
Right.
another really touching moment where like during the whole movie, Peter's really obsessed with the whereabouts of his parents, like the mystery of his parents, and like Aunt May's kind of kind of taking it personally a little bit because she's like, "Hey, man, like I know you love your like freaking science dad or whatever, but like he wasn't the one that was like changing your diapers and like taking you to school and feeding you. Like I did that shit. So like and like and Sally Field's like really going at it. She's doing really like a good job. And so for me, even though that movie as a whole probably isn't very good, to me
Hmm.
there are at least enough moments of earnestness where it's like, or like it's trying and it's taking risks, and there's actors actually acting, and it's not just like, oh hey penis Parker, and that's just like the whole movie, and it's just like, okay. Um so like I don't even remember what the original question was.
It's
I'm just
it's
going on.
fine. I don't
Um
either.
but I don't know. It's just like it's just now it's just like, okay, like a lot of the writing is kind of the same. A lot of it is just like a lot of the Marvel movies now are just like played for comedy. And it's just like a bunch of references, and so that's just like a not a whole lot of substance there for me anymore, unfortunately. And it's just like it's still fun. You go
Hmm.
see one of those movies day one, and all the fans are there and whatever. But I don't know. I'm a little checked out because it's just like I said, I'm all for compromise. Like the Civil War, that the movie that we got is very different from the comic book. It's like,
Oh yeah.
much smaller roster, much whatever. But like back then when they like gave a shit about the writing, like it fits very well with the interconnected story that they were telling. They were building up to this moment where Cap and Iron Man like weren't going to see eye to eye, and it
Hmm.
just doesn't come out of nowhere, and like it feels very and like that's where they introduced Spider-Man in the MCU, and his
Right.
introduction in that movie I think is phenomenal. Like the way that
It's
they
cool.
did it, it's integrated with the story. They fixed up a lot of the issues with the Andrew Garfield stuff in just like a few lines of dialogue, and like and then he's there for the perfect amount of time. He doesn't overshadow the movie. Same with like Black Panther. Like he's also introduced in that movie. And a movie that's so it's like kind of dense if you think about it, with like all the cast of characters and where you need to go with the story, but it still does it its own way, its own style. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I have the Civil War version, the movie version. And then like, all right, if I need the comic book version, then like just go read the comic book. Cause like if you just watch the movie and it's just the same thing as the comic book to a T, then it's like, what's the point of trying to make a movie? I
Right.
mean, that's how I
Right.
see it anyway. Because there's a lot of fans where it's just like, well, if it didn't happen how it happened in the comics, then I don't care. And it's just like, that's just such like, it's just minuscule thinking for me.
Well, I loved all that stuff when I was a kid, but I also like I realized that like I'm going to a movie to be entertained. Like it's ultimately like
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like, what's it called? That's how me and my girlfriend are. Sometimes we'll see a bad movie on purpose.
yeah.
Just like, oh man, that looks horrible. Let's go see it. Cause it's like,
Right.
like we saw like when like Venom 2 came out, we were like, oh man, that's gonna be awful. Let's go watch it. And like we went watched it, and it was like, I know there's a lot of people, a lot of fans of those Venom movies, but like to me, like that
Not
second one was
good.
just like, oh my god. The first one's just like kind of like a shitty action movie, and like, and it's like whatever. But the second one is just like, oh, it was such a dumpster fire. But we were laughing, we're it's so funny, and So I don't know. It's exactly. I'm there to be entertained, whether it's like, not just to like play it safe and check a bunch of boxes off and like, yep, this character's here, and it's like, well, I guess that's good enough, I guess, for people today.
I'm with you. Well, that's kind of all I had for you, man. I appreciate you nerding out with me and whatnot. Do you have anything you want to promote or say here?
Oh no, just thank you for having me. Thanks for listening to ramble about Spider-Man, way more than I did about gear. But that's kind of how my brain is. But uh, but yeah, just like Steven here, like I'm doing the YouTube thing. I'm just at Jerry Trevino, Jerry with a G. And hopefully now that like I've settled in with the move, I've been kind of struggling with the channel for like a few years now, just uploading consistently. But I feel like we're getting to a groove where like, okay, this can kind of be more the norm, and really give it a fair shot, like a fair shake. Like there's no more interruptions. It's just, you know, try to make it for real this time.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to chat with me, man.
Yeah, dude, thank you.
Absolutely. Have a good one.
You too.
All right, so that was the video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I know I had a blast. Thanks again to Jerry for taking the time out to chat with me. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I feel like we got into all kinds of interesting stuff with influences and just kind of how things got going. There were some amazing stories in there and a lot of super fun tangents. So yeah, that was an absolute blast, and I can't wait to do it again. Yeah, so I'm going to be in Jerry's DMs trying to get something else worked out. But in the meantime, feel free to hit up all his links. You'll find them in the description. And until next time, it's been Gear, Stuff, and Things. It's me. It's you. It's always you. You. I'm glad you're here if you're here. And thanks for being patient with me. It's been a while since I've done a video. And hopefully this does it. It makes up for my lack. I feel like it might a little bit. Maybe not. See you later.